Welcome to the Soul Revolution Tribe podcast, where we share stories, laughs, and even a few tears, but always a good time. We are about depth and real raw sharing through soul conversations and medicine. We are learning to find ourselves again and to be an unstoppable force of nature, ready to break down the constructs and rebuild them with love and acceptance at its core. We are the new world. Welcome back to another episode with the Soul Revolution Tribe. This is Jackie, your Shamanic Soul Guide and Remembrance Facilitator. And today I have the pleasure of sharing Laura with you. Laura is a recovering New Yorker and fashion show producer on a journey of healing herself and sharing that knowledge to support others in healing themselves as well. So I'm so excited to have Laura here, and I'm giggling to myself because Laura and I have probably talked for at least 2 hours or so before we even decided to push the record button. I just love talking to her and all the beautiful conversations we have. So I'm excited to share her with you today. With that, I'll let Laura kind of give her a little intro of kind of her journey, whatever wants to come through and share.
So, hi everybody. I'm Laura, and I grew up in New York, outside Manhattan, and lived in Manhattan for about 20 years. I was working in fashion and loved, loved, loved fashion, and got to a point where I ran myself down and I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't prioritizing myself and I wasn't setting boundaries that I'm learning now to set. And I let the anxiety and stress kind of take over my life. And that led me, I have a very supportive mother who said to me, she was living in Costa Rica, said, come stay with me in Costa Rica, come move to Costa Rica, you know, quit your job, I'll support you. I wasn't ready for that fully. I knew I still wanted to support myself somehow, but I was ready to let go of the idea of living in Manhattan, and which really was the catalyst of knowing, okay, I can quit my job now. I can control my life and pick clients and kind of try to slow down a bit and start to heal. And I had been following Human Garage a bit, but not really having the space and not being ready to fully get into it. I saw little videos here and there, and I had tons of aches and pains throughout because I had been bottling up my emotions for so long. And then, yeah, really the emotions is what it comes down to in the end. But I just was so tense and had so much stress. So I would do little movements here and there. And as it took about a year for my mom offering it to me, really committing to going, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave my job, which was difficult for me to say because I'm a people pleaser and I always want to make sure that everyone's taken care of. And so the idea of leaving a job I was in for 20 years where I was a partner in the business, I kept thinking about everybody else, and I was putting everyone out if I left, and I was disappointing everybody, and I wasn't being the perfect worker, like the perfect child and the perfect student. And so that was one of the hardest things I think I did, which was kind of that first step of prioritizing myself, of leaving my job. And my mom and I ended up moving to Portugal instead of Costa Rica. She left Costa Rica and we moved to Portugal, which is where we're recording this from, or I'm my side is being recorded from. And I started trying to decompress a bit. And it was a little bit of a wind down because I still was doing some consulting for my old company. And it was taking me on a lot of traveling that was still keeping my stress levels up. And in the summer, the beginning of the summer, I went full into really healing myself and focusing on how to get myself out of stress and really just prioritizing myself. And since then, I've just kind of been on a continued journey of really self-reflection and working through different emotions that I knew were inside, but I was blocking and wasn't ready to address. And I feel like it's a winding path up and down still, but I'm finally feeling as if I am getting kind of a hold of my life again and feeling like I'm in control, which I know we're always in control, but now I feel like, okay, I'm in control and I still have ups and downs, but yeah. But I'm starting to learn more tools to be able to help me with that.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is like you got back in the driver's seat. That's how I always say is like
Yes.
for most of my life I realized I was in the back seat and then I thought I was in the driver's seat and maybe I was just in the passenger seat. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm ready to take my own wheel. Like, I love you. Thank you for doing it for this long, but I'm ready to hold it in that space. I was just sharing too, it's like also the relationship the other day. I had a conversation about like your relationship with your heart and your mind and how the mind normally is holding the steering wheel. And
Yeah.
they're like, Jackie, how do I let my heart lead? I don't understand. Like, how do I let my heart lead? And I said, it takes some time and some trust and some really nourishing and nurturing the relationship between the heart and the mind because they have to learn how to trust each other. Because so it's going to start with the mind's got, they can't see me right now, but both hands on the steering wheel, like death grip, and then eventually like okay I'll let you kind of hold it too like heart okay you can take but I'm not letting go of this side and then maybe I'll loosen my grip a little bit and then maybe I'll let the heart take the wheel and like kind of be a little anxious over here like breathing and then still grab the wheel when I feel like
Hmm.
I'm losing quote unquote control until eventually they learn this beautiful trust dance this navigation and realizing the heart's not shutting the mind out it's still allowing it there and that's comes back to like my whole mantra my soul mantra for my life and my business is the soul leads the body guides the mind aligns and that's the exact thing that I'm talking about is society has taught us to have the mind guiding us or leading us the mind's job is not to do that. The job of the mind is to be that co-pilot, to help us align and see the things and reflect it back. And we get to do it. So it's almost like the soul. What I see is the soul is like actually in the driver's seat. Like it's the observer. It's the one doing the thing. The body is the vehicle getting us there, and the terrain that we're navigating, right? And then the mind is like our co-pilot saying, "Hey, construction over here. Are we sure we want to do that? We might be delayed." Or, hey, I think there's a cliff over here. Do we want to do that? And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's like the soul goes, oh, okay. Yep, I see that. Thanks for the reminder. Let's shift this way. Or I know it's going to get bumpy here, but just trust me. Hang on. We're going to get through this. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor for life too. And so like that's what I'm hearing is like you're allowing yourself to go back into that driver's seat and figure out. And then when you're talking before, it's like navigating the two
Sure.
worlds. And
Yeah.
as Scorpios, especially, we're like all or nothing. I'm in or out. It's hot or cold. There's no lukewarm in any of it.
Yeah. And I am starting to, and maybe it's because I'm feeling more at peace and have more calm just inside me, but I am curious and feel more positive about there being a world where my mind can accept I can be in the fashion world and which I was saying at a certain point, it's not aligned with me anymore. It's not aligned with like I need to just solely be taking care of myself and healing myself. And this isn't going to heal me. And I can't be in like with my foot over here and my foot over there. I need to choose one or the other. And I'm starting to be more open to, okay, my identity isn't defined by one or the other, and it doesn't take away from one or the other. It doesn't make me less, open and interested and curious about continuing my healing journey if I also am still happy and can work through fashion shows without having a mental breakdown and getting anxiety and absorbing everyone's emotions and feeling responsible for them. If I can just be and observe and allow it to kind of flow through and get my job done and have that be a support to, like we were saying before hitting record, like have that be my support for what my new passion is, which is trying to, be a coach in human garage and continuing to have that time to work on myself as well. It's both. And we all heal each other when in the process too. So
Yeah, you get to have both worlds. So it doesn't have to be, I have to choose. I feel like there's so many, and for me, it's like my inner child comes out and feels like, oh my gosh, I have to make them happy. It's this or this. And then when I do that, the mind kind of closes the option. Like there's always more than two options, right? It may be the most
yeah.
convenient options, but there's always options out there. So I've been like really working and training my mind to go, okay, and like you feel this, and
Yes.
what are you making that mean? And is that the truth? And is there more ways to look at it? I literally almost like see like I wear glasses. Like I like take these off, like shift over a little bit. Now we're gonna put this on, almost like playing like a kid, like dress up. And I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna put this cloak on, and what does it feel like in here? And so you can see the
Yeah.
situation in so many in a playful way, but seeing it from the whole like different perspectives, and it gives you a whole different reality and a reframe of, okay, so maybe not that it's taking away from what I'm feeling, but maybe it isn't as overwhelming if I want as I thought it was. Like we were talking before we hit record, is like maybe the fashion world doesn't have to be misaligned to you. There's parts that
Hmm.
you don't agree on, but there's a reason why it was on your heart and it came and unfolded. And when you choose to have those beauty parts and like focus on those instead of letting the others overshadow it, it's like there's a beautiful blessing and gift in that. And we were saying how you when you do that, you get to walk in both worlds and you get to be an example um in that stressful environment of how to navigate yourself. And I wouldn't be surprised if people are like, Laura, how are you like
Right.
holding this composure and things like that? And you get to say, it's not that I'm like above or anything. Like I really am choosing me first and making sure that I'm nurturing myself. And we were talking before about like, yeah, it may just be like the show, but it's not necessarily just the work of you being there. It's like the prep to get there of like even the mental, like the prep is
Yeah.
like the anxiety kicks in. And then so it's really like that part too, then the show, and then like kind of the burnout afterwards, because a lot of it is what we made it think. Okay, yes, this person snapped and they said whatever and they're going through their own thing. But that, like our inner child goes, well, that means that I'm not good enough. I didn't make them happy. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I didn't do my job. I
Absolutely.
don't belong. Like in those little voices, and we're not taught how to say, I hear you, love. Like, and but that's not your truth. That's okay. But let me know. I want you to have the floor. I want you to truly express. You're safe with me to say how you feel. And yeah, I understand that. I understand that didn't feel good. Like I get it. I put myself in your shoes. Like I see it, how you can take it. And what if we tried this? Once again, I always say that. Like that's my big thing is, and like you can feel this,
Yes.
and there can be another truth there too. And we get at the end of the day, we are the one that gets to decide how we want to create our reality. What lens do we want to create our truth through? Because me and you, we can go to the exact same event and we can get two way different perspectives. We can go to an
Yeah.
event and like one person will be like, I absolutely hate that. I got no value. Like everything was chaotic. I didn't feel safe. I didn't whatever. And then other person's like, oh my gosh, that was life changing. It was beautiful. It was amazing. Like I couldn't imagine. But they were in the exact same thing. So what's the difference? Like, I don't know if you want to share like what you think is the difference in that. Like I'll let you think on it, but like for me it's like the perspective, you know what I mean, is like also the frame of reference of what you're looking at when you come through and the expectations you set before you go.
I
But go
think
ahead and share your point of
I
that.
think for me, it's that idea of how what what our perspective is also isn't necessarily reality. And so it's what is that change of perspective? If you did go to the event and you were miserable and it was horrible and it was awful and I had an amazing time, or vice versa, then it becomes that, oh wow, like, so what was I like, what did I need to learn from this and draw from it? And changing your view of something that you would normally give you anxiety, make you angry, to kind of going internal and going, okay, but why is this coming up for me? And that shift of perspective, I think, is what has helped me significantly on the journey. And especially like having people like you to be able to reflect with and reflect back and hold me accountable of like, okay, what is, what does that bring up for you? What is this learning for you? Like, not pushing it out to, oh, this experience was awful, but okay, well, why did you feel it was awful? Why were those feelings coming up? What is trying to come out, and like move through that emotion? And sometimes not knowing, which is, I'm working on surrendering to, like, it being okay to not necessarily knowing what it is, but at least realizing that it's coming up for a certain reason.
Absolutely. It's trying to make space. It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to come back home. That's what I always say. All these parts are part of us that want to be loved. It's the things that we call the little gremlins and the little demons inside of us. And when we realize and we put the light on it and we clean it off and we view change the tainted view, we look at it, it's actually the most beautiful parts of us that didn't feel like they belonged. And so whether we put them in isolation or push them away or not, like, and it doesn't matter. It's no guilt, no shame. Like, it's about, okay, I did what I did when I did, but now I know better. So I'm going to do better. And you can come back home. And I'm sorry. Like the whole Pono prayer, like you do that with yourself too, not just somebody else. It's like, that's honestly why we do it. Because for me, it's like when I'm seeing the reality, what I see outside of me is once again my reality. We all have different
Yeah.
realities. And our
Yeah.
reality is actually a reflection of what's going on inside. And we're going to project it.
Yes.
So if you had a miserable time, that doesn't mean you didn't get anything from that experience.
Right.
A lot of the times I get to sit and radically think of like, okay, I was really uncomfortable. Like that brought up a lot of weird things for me. And and once again, I say like weird as not in a bad thing, because weird is a good thing
Right.
to me. Like that's
I agree.
interesting that I'm feeling all of these different things. And what am I feeling? Because I can feel a lot of things at one time. And what am I feeling? And what is my mind making that mean? Because it also has lots of different stories. Our mind will make a story to make it make sense. Doesn't mean it's our truth. It's like, okay, oh,
Yeah.
she raised her eyebrow a little bit in there, or she coughed in that moment. Oh my gosh, that means like she doesn't like me. Like I said something wrong. Oh my gosh, she's mad at me. Like that was literally my life. Like before, I was like, I
Me
felt like I
too.
had to walk eggshells because I had to have somebody else approve of me or I couldn't approve of me. And I had to break through that. But I had to be radically honest and see it how it is. And so like if you have a miserable situation, a lot of the times it's giving yourself that love and compassion and grace and going back, okay, where did I start? Where did all of a sudden the energy shift and I felt like it was miserable? And why? What feeling was I feeling to label it that? Because you can have a feeling, and when we put a like we choose what label we put on it. Same thing with like nervousness and excitement is the exact same feeling and like
Yeah.
chemical makeup, and we choose it, and it doesn't have to be either or too. So a lot of the times when I am in a mode of expansion, I'll feel the
Mm.
nervousness and the excitement at the same time, and I don't have to pick either or. And then I normally know I'm on the right track. Like I should be a little scared because I'm stepping out into the unknown. So yeah, there's going to be a little nerves there, but also excitement for what's possible. And so that's the lens of the world that I try to look at. And it doesn't mean that I'm not human. Like Laura and I were talking about before, like this last couple weeks have been literally like a purging, and my inner child has been literally like screaming of like, I am hurt, I need space. And like even before this like recording, like it's like, okay, I woke up, this is kind of the space I'm at, and I could let myself go, oh no, we should probably record because reschedule this recording because I'm navigating through this. And I said, but no, I don't have to do that. as much as I know if I would have reached out to Laura, she would have been like, absolutely, I understand. Like,
Absolutely.
without a doubt. But instead, I told her, I said, I'm going to be like radically vulnerable right now and share like this is the process I'm at, and I don't have to let it stop me from moving forward and doing the other things that I desire to. I get to have the floor. Like for me, it's like I don't bypass any part of my being anymore. So I got to allow. I had an hour before, like we hopped onto this recording, and I said, okay, I got an hour to really allow my inner child to take the floor, throw a tantrum, scream, bloody murder, cry her eyes out, whatever she is, to express and witness and be held in. Because yes, she's feeling angry right now. But you know what? Under that anger is this deep sadness, this deep like feeling of rejection and not enough and abandonment and misplacing trust and like where does she belong and do I even belong with me? And she had to remember that. And because I honored that space and I told her, even though you're acting out, I love you and I honor you and I'm giving you this, like, of course she's going to want to come to me versus if I would have said, okay, stop whining. Like, I understand we have things to do. Like, just get over it. Like, can't you just feel it already and move on? And sometimes I feel like that's what life is, like what we're going through, even in the healing world. I don't know if you could agree with that, is like we check a box. I'm going to faster maneuver my way out of this. Just, I'm going to be better. Like, but no, you have to actually deal with the emotions and the storylines and the things that are coming up. Not saying that fascia is bad by any means. It's a tool to connect with the body to help bring it to the surface. But if you keep bringing it to the surface and you never actually like connect and work with it, not necessarily just through it, but with it, because you don't want to rush through it either, is like be with it, embrace it, acknowledge it, accept it for where it is and that it doesn't make us bad. We can then let it move through. But until we've come with that love and forgiveness and acceptance in those spaces for us being human, we're a divine being in a human experience. And so remembering like that's also a whole nother tangent of like we think that we need to go on this like be holier than thou and we're going back to the divineness. We forget that we're divine already. We came here to learn the humanness part in that space.
Yeah. And I think with, like being in the emotion and letting yourself work through it is really difficult because the moment it comes up, even if I'm like, okay, I'm crying really hard right now. Okay, I'm done with it. Like, but you're not necessarily done with it. Like, let yourself sit in it. And I can find myself going, like, if I'm crying, now I'm like, what's happening? Like, I've done all this work. I should feel amazing. Like, I shouldn't have to go through this again. I should be able to fascial maneuver my way out of it or think my way through it. And just being able to kind of like be in community and hear everyone else still on that journey that is the right path. And it's a winding path. It's not perfectly straight. And in order to, I think like you say, it's like that mountain, like then you come down again and then you go back up. But if you were to come back and see over like from a bird's eye perspective, each time you go down the mountain, you're still at a higher elevation and you're slowly still coming up. And sometimes the longer you're on the journey, the deeper those emotions are because you're getting to the root of all those causes. And I feel like I'm saying this now and I need to re-listen to this podcast so I can remind myself of this because I feel like I'm on the up level of the mountain at this moment. But a couple weeks ago, like I was down at the bottom and I was like, what is going on? And I was going, I don't know. I don't know. And I know we were talking about this earlier in the week. Like I was struggling with, I know I want to connect to my inner child and I feel like I can't connect to her. And then realizing, well, actually, as a child, held all my emotions inside. And it took a really long time for me to be able to identify what an emotion was that I was feeling. So really me being in that moment of like, I don't know. And people asking me like, what's wrong? And me being like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm sad. I don't know why I have anxiety. I don't know why I'm miserable here, was really the inner child. And
Exactly.
allowing myself to be okay with I don't know is still something I'm really working on.
Well, and that's the thing is like the unknown can bring so much like fear and things too, because we we've we've associated control as safety.
Yeah.
And realizing
Yeah.
trust is actually where the true safety is. And like you were saying, like what about the mountains is what I've learned, like personally for me, is like sometimes you get to the point and we forget like that dip, it gets deeper and deeper the higher we go up. So yeah, it can feel like a train wreck sometimes. Like going through, you're like, there so many people are like, Jackie, why am I going through this? Like I've already been through this. And I'm like, sweetheart, like I do the same thing. It's layers. The
Yeah.
emotions are also in
Yeah.
layers, and the trauma is in layers. It's not like, can you imagine trying to rip a band-aid off and taking all of that out at once? Like your whole nervous system, like my body already like clenches just thinking
Yeah.
about that. It's like
I
our
was
body,
physically cringing.
yeah, our body goes, no, I know you don't have the capacity for that, and that's okay. That's why I drip it out slowly. And then when you feel those feelings, it's actually a celebration because your body trusts you enough to say, hey, I think you're ready. I think you're ready to feel
Yeah.
this contrast. I feel like you're ready to come and lean into this and embrace it and accept these different layers. Because also as we do that, we set like everybody, especially like the new year, they're talking about set your intentions and you want all these things and these big visions. And yes, that's beautiful. But you also don't remember like when you ask for something, you're not going to just get that thing. You're going to get opportunities to learn that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, for example, like one year I set the intention of growth. And like I was talking to somebody and they're like I would never pick that word because they know what that means. Like they're like, yeah, well, little did I know. I was a little naive when I think that. But I mean, it was the best thing is like, but that was one of the hardest years for me. I lost my mom. Like my whole world got turned upside down. I ended up completely changing like the way I function in life.
Yeah.
Also, the big C word came into like reality
Yeah.
in that space. And like so the whole world was doing this shift. But man, did I grow. But it wasn't like I just woke up and I'm like this little sunflower and everything's happy. Like, no, like if you think about it, how a plant grows is like there's a moment where you're in complete darkness. You think the whole world gave up on you. And really, you're remembering that you just got planted. And the slower you wiggle, even though you're struggling through the sand, you're wiggling, wiggling, and wiggling. Eventually, you find the light, and it's not over there. You're still then having a journey to like to put the layers of the blocks to get your stalk big enough to then flower. Like it's not a one and done thing. And even if you look at
Yeah.
nature as like a tree, like you grow, you eventually that plant, you grow into the tree, and even the tree with its wise years and things like that, it drops its leaves. It goes through a death and rebirth every year too. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean like the journey's ever done. It's just the different layers. And that's why I say it's a spiral journey. Like you're spiraling up the mountain and you're hitting the different triggers and you're eventually going to get to the peak and you'll have a little low though there, but remembering like it's not done, then you're going to kind of have to do a little dip and then you're going back into the next one. And yes, you can take breaks along the way. It's like it's not like you have to keep moving, charging forward. Like I don't suggest that. I suggest you honor and doing that. And just because you're breaking and you're taking a breath and integrating, you're allowing that space to not just learn, but integrate. And that's where I
Yes.
think a lot of people miss is like, you can put all the knowledge in the world in you, but it doesn't turn to wisdom until you truly have an understanding and you start embodying it and you're playing with it and you're seeing how it works out in the world. And that's how
Yes.
I'm all about when it comes to teaching. Like, I'll give you a tool, but I'm not going to tell you this is exactly how the tool is going to work for you. Like, I want you to play with it. I want you to tell me what comes up when you feel it. I want you to see how it works. And like, okay, Jackie, you said like to reframe and look at the world this way. And like take my focus on looking at the beauty of life, even when like my day's absolutely miserable. I hate going to my job. Everything I do, it reminds me of why I don't want to be there. And I said, okay, instead of taking your focus on that, I want you to set your focus. I want you to wake up in the morning and go, yes, I'm alive. Hug yourself. Thank you for being here and going into this next day. And then I want you to, every time you feel that nudge of, I don't like this, and that child like pouting, I want you to go, okay, now there's three things that I can enjoy in the situation. Sometimes that can be challenging. And it could be like, I am grateful that I can breathe.
Right.
I'm grateful that I have the freedom to select what I'm going to eat. Like it doesn't like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you have to kind of pull into those little more basic things, but just doing that and start like retraining your brain and creating those neural pathways of I'm shifting the lens I'm looking through. So I'm going to then shift my reality because that's where I'm functioning from. And it's not bypassing. I don't want you to like, okay, we're just going to think cupcakes and rainbows. Like, no,
Right.
no, no, no. Like breaks, don't take that as how I'm saying this at all. Anyone listening. You get to see that side of the world and honor how you're feeling and know that there's a transition. Okay, so maybe there's a misalignment, but where is actually the misalignment? Is it because I'm feeling uncomfortable because I have to deal with the emotions and the things that are coming up? So it's not
Right.
necessarily, if you look at it that way, it's not necessarily a misalignment with whatever XYZ task. The
Right.
misalignment is I don't feel like I belong with me because this is stuff is coming up. So now I have an
Yeah.
opportunity to connect and love and see what that is to come back into alignment because everything else is just we get to decide how we want to interact with it. We have no power over how it functions, but we do have the power over how we interact and decide and make meaning of it.
And I think that understanding comes with practice of it. So it's like you could give me a tool and you could say, true, okay, what are good things that you are taking from the situation? And it could take, and I could do that every day. And then one day it just suddenly clicks and it's like, and maybe that's the moment that that neural pathway changes where you go, oh wow, I see how this has been helping me. Oh, my perspective has entirely changed, and you just get it. And I've been having that happen more and more too. And I think it's that difference between like I can understand something, but like to really understand it and feel it is it's like once you get that, it sticks with you forever. And you're like, oh, I can really embody this now.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is really just remembering, okay, there's lots of different aspects and to try it on. Because what works for one person
Mhm.
isn't necessarily going to be what's aligned and what's going to speak to them. We're here just to plant the seeds. Like that's how I look at it. Like I'm not healing you. That's just powering. I'm not doing anything to you. I am facilitating a healing process that you have the opportunity to choose whether you want to lean into or not. And I am facilitating like a remembrance opportunity. But once again, anytime I say that I'm healing you or I like that's me taking your power away.
Yeah.
Like for me,
Yeah.
I want to empower you and show you that you're the one healing yourself. And it's okay to lean into resources and ask for help. But my goal with what I do is like, I want to give you the tools. I don't want to create codependency anymore. I want to give
Yeah.
you the tools and I'll be here to help navigate along that path until you build the confidence and you get used to the tools and how they function and understand how to use them and how to use them and play with them and see like you have massive creativity too. Like the tool, like my frame of how I use it, you might have all of a sudden an idea of creation and going, hey, I could try it in this way that wouldn't even come across my mind. Like that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all. It's not a you have to do it all these rules and regulations and whatever. Like no, make it your own. Like that's what I'm all about is innovation. And I don't want anyone to be just like me because they're not meant to be just like me. I want you to be just like you because that's what the world needs. They
Yeah.
need your magic, your medicine, your life, your spark, and we all come into co-collaboration together. Like that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. It reminds me of on New Year's, or New Year's Eve, I had a friend who moved here as well, and her mom came over. And it was a really lovely night because it was conversations of like all not like-minded in the way of like we agree on everything, but just like open to having these deeper kind of conversations that we're having here, and like talking about Akashic records and talking about, just like talking about the Lemurians and like everything, Atlantis, because where we are in the Azores is one of the rumored locations of where Atlantis fell. So it was just really amazing to have those expansive conversations. And my friend's mom brought this up to me of like, she wakes up in the morning and she'll say like three different things of, I receive 1% more, and whether it's joy or whether it's love, whatever it becomes every day. And you increase that percentage each day. And then again, it's like a practice of being open to seeing what then comes in that day, where you can go, oh, wow, I really did receive 1% more of whatever it is you asked for, whether it's like 1% more laughter, 1% more of this, and slowly you raise that percentage and you start noticing how these intentions that you set to receive in the morning actually start manifesting for you. And I thought that was interesting. I've yet to put that into practice, but I thought that was really interesting.
I love that. We do that too. We choose what we want. And what I love about that, like, is just what I teach my kiddos is like, choose a feeling, choose an energy, choose a state of being, not necessarily an action. Because we're rewiring the brain then that success and abundance isn't just doing, really the state of
Yeah.
being. And so,
Yeah.
yes, we're creating happiness. And like, because that's what my youngest always says. He's like, I want to create happiness. That's his word for this coming year. Like this 2024 is happiness.
Oh.
And that's the thing. And it's really helping him remember too. And I mean, he does a lot of the times. It's like not people or necessarily things that make him happy. It's his choice of creating the happiness, and he brings his happiness, and I bring my
Yes.
happiness, and we then get to bask in our mutual happiness together. And like I
Yeah.
love that he's 6 and he already has that deep concept of that, and it like makes me want to hug myself and go, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. And all the times where I'm like, oh my
You
gosh,
are.
am I doing this? I mean, that's motherhood, I think. but, but like that's the thing. And so we reflect at the end of the day, like, okay, so this is what we decided. This is the intention that we wanted. Did we actually create that? And then sometimes we look and then we'll be like, oh, I don't know if we necessarily did that. Okay, that's okay if it's that, because that's a learning opportunity too, is to say, okay, so what was my real intention? This is what I said out loud with my mouth, but what was I feeling as I created the intention? Because sometimes we get into this robot automatic mode of, okay, this is the routine that we do, and we're not truly
Right.
present. And we were talking about this before. Like, no one teaches us how to be truly present. Like, yes, our body is here. That doesn't mean that you're truly present. Like, I mean present emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically. Like all of you is here home having this conversation. And that can be challenging itself too, especially when we have those moments of those little trigger points, or those little, like, where they rub you a little raw, and then instantly our body goes, our mind will pull, like, will pull away in some way, shape, or form. And it's like reminding our body it's okay. Like, okay, you can feel that and we can be here. Or same thing as like, it depends on like our nervous system. Like, do we instantly, like, is our default fight? Because you'll also hear that when you have a conversation with somebody and you say something and your intention is not that, but it rubs on one of those raw wounds, and that inner defender, and all of a sudden everything is like on the defense mode. I'm ready. I'm here boxing with you. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
but if you don't have the awareness, you don't even realize that your nervous system is flipping like that. And so for me, it's like that's the key, is just slowing down and to see with curiosity and love of like, what is coming up for me? And that's interesting. Not judging it, not making it bad.
Yeah.
Here's in society all the time, like especially as women, like you hear, you can't be angry. Like that's not allowed. Like, be the good little girl. Like, just deal with it. And like even with like my situation that I'm kind of navigating through right now, and it can feel heavy at times, I realized like how much I've grown because the
Mm-hmm.
like the younger version of me, her default would have been, okay, they hurt you. That's fine. You can't do anything about it. Suck it up. Just deal with it later. Like it'll be fine. Put the smile on. Everything's good. We're gonna keep
Yeah.
moving. Like fight through the tears. No one needs to see you upset because then they're winning. Like that was the narrative. And I said, but what is that? What is that solving? Is that helping me at all? Like it's not. Like I would rather be honest and truthful. And if I'm in a relationship, I want to be that genuine, like authentic, raw, messy version of me because I want you, like this is like a common statement, but my husband and I always say it back. Like it really anchors in like if you can't love me at my worst, why should I allow space for you to love me at my best? Because that's what love is.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
you for where
So
you've
true.
been. I love you for where you are now. And I love you for where you're going. And there's nothing you can do because my love is not conditional. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean not
Yeah.
having boundaries. Like people like, I think that's a kind of harder concept to understand. And when I say understand, it's not being under something or a superior.
Right.
What I see, like, because I've heard people say that before. When I say understand, I mean, I looked from all different, anyone that knows me, like, I look for all different angles around you, above and within, without. And I am actually now under cradling and
Yeah.
holding all that space. So it's just so people understand, like, when I say that, that's the true energy that I feel that word embodies for me. Other people may have different definitions, but that's how I see it. So when you have a true understanding of what's going on and what you're radically honest of the processes that are coming up, you can hold that grace, compassion, and love. And you can also say, I'm laying a boundary. And we talked about this too, like the difference between what an actual true boundary is. And we both are on the journey of like,
Yeah.
what is a boundary? How do I set it? How do I hold it? And even though like we have been doing it throughout life, is really like embodying that next layer of that. So for me, like a boundary isn't saying, Laura, you can't do this. It's saying, I am not available for somebody to lash out at me and tell me I'm a horrible person. And if that happens, I will walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not saying if Laura does this, or is it no, if anybody crosses this line that I'm drawing on the bound, I'm making my own container. Like I'm drawing this line, this is what I'm not available for. And that's why it's important to express the boundaries. It's not a threat, it's not whatever. It's this is what I'm available for and this is what I'm not available for. And there's a line in the sand. And it doesn't mean that somebody crosses your boundaries, you're going to disown them or whatever. It's just
Right.
but then it's you also have an opportunity. Did they intentionally and maliciously cross that boundary because they do not respect you? And then you have a choice there. Or do they just not understand boundaries either and they're navigating it? Like there's two different, very different energies for me.
Yeah.
Like I can hold
Yeah.
more compassion and grace if somebody is like just trying to navigate and they don't like you can feel it like they're genuine, they're really not trying to do that versus somebody that literally is like I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then you have an option. Like it's not on them. Like once again, like you can push the blame all you want, but that's not it. It's I have an option. I have a choice. Do I still allow that person to enable that person to treat me that way and make me feel what I feel? Or am I going to follow through on the boundary that I set for myself? Because that's what boundaries are. They're commitments to ourselves. They have nothing to do with really anyone outside. It's a commitment to ourselves. Where the other way, like people think that boundaries are like what I say is like there's three different things. There's boundaries, there's requests. That's an invitation. And so I'm giving you option to say yes or no. And I can't get mad at you if I want you to say yes and you say no. I gave you the option. Like I gave you that and there's really nothing I can do about it because the power is yours to make that decision. And I truly believe that. That's why be intentional of what you ask. Or there's those like threats or the ultimatums, like the I'm really not taking responsibility, I'm pushing it outside and I'm trying to control somebody else. And that's not healthy either. Like that when you create a healthy relationship, and that's what I'm all about because shamanism is all about relationship with yourself and everything outside of you. And
Yeah.
in a healthy relationship, you don't want control and threats and fearing people or manipulating people in there. You want love and openness and communication. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have those points of like, oh, this sucks. Like we are having quarrel or a disagreement, like that's actually beautiful, because if you have a relationship and you haven't hit any of those, it's not truly a relationship. Like there's no
Yeah.
intimacy you see, like you're not sharing those little more raw, touchier topics. And it's actually beautiful to have those disagreements, because that also shows you so much about the relationship you have, the true relationship. Can we agree to disagree? Can we be open enough and let our guard down to hear both sides of the story? Can we allow space for our emotions without projecting the emotion on the other person? Can we take radical responsibility for our part? Like there's so many different layers of that
Yeah.
that comes in the growing journey of relationships. And so, I mean, I could talk about that forever, but like that's the big thing. And especially when it comes to, like, I think one of the biggest relationships and the most important relationships is with ourself. And especially when we're talking like the inner child, because a
Yeah.
lot of our behaviors and the way we function and the programming and things all stems from that little girl inside. And so when we let her have the floor and not let her be like the spoiled little princess and run the show, and not ever like, and no is sometimes a word that we need to say, right? Like like
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
adults, like we have a different view, and sometimes no is needed, not because I'm trying to punish you. It's, honey, I see the world and I see all the other moving pieces. This is probably not the best decision right now, in that, because I love you, not because I'm doing anything bad. But that doesn't mean that that's how we grew up. So it's like reframing. And when I hear the no, what comes up? That doesn't mean I'm not good enough. That doesn't mean that that's the end of this chapter. It means, okay, not right now. What other possibilities are out there? If this is really on my heart and this is what I desire, then there's going to be another way. There's another door that's going to open as this one closes. And if I went through this door and I'm supposed to go on this one, and I'm sitting here fighting the door and trying to shove it open after it said a no, I'm missing the beautiful opportunity over here that actually would probably be a lot more graceful and easy and things like that, like for me and flow. But I'm here, and once again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's our journey. But that's why I love one of my mentors told me, like, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And sometimes that's a perfect
Yeah.
example of how we choose to continue to suffer. And also the fact that we're so used to being in that energy. Like, I grew up in dysfunction, even though I didn't realize it was dysfunction. And
Yeah.
now, like, that's all like I really know. And so sometimes when there is like lack of like actually healthy functioning, I'm like,
What's wrong?
like, is this right? Like, is this possible? And I mean, and I'm learning it, and so I'm open to it because I'm creating the function in here. But it's not that the dysfunction outside of you ever leaves. It's how you relate inside and how you interact with the dysfunction outside that shifts. And it's not that it's a bad thing. Like, I think that there's the spectrum for a reason. Like, so you can see and experience. And that's what I always say, like, without the deep rooted sadness and like those quote unquote negative energies, you would never be able to truly fully understand and like get the concept and the capacity of those higher ones, like love. If I never lost, how do I know like the depths of the love that you can have? Like that's the thing.
That's
Like
so
if I
true.
didn't have grief, like if I didn't lose something that was like my mom, if I didn't lose something that was so dear to my heart, that I'm literally is a part of me and I'm a part of her, like if I didn't have that, then it wouldn't understand the true depths of love, because I believe that's what grief is. It's the remembered love. It's the also the layers of the life that I expected or envisioned, and those walls crumbling and that illusion falling, and knowing our own humanity. And that doesn't mean like she'll never be with me, like, because she's with me all the time. But that doesn't mean the grief ever totally leaves. Like it's just now it's just another part. It's kind of like Inside Out. Like I don't know if you know that movie, like where they have the little like emotions that come in.
Love
I love
Inside
those.
Out.
But like that's like grief came in with her bags and she's gonna stay at home now. And she's just another layer of me. And I think we all have grief always will come in many different forms. It doesn't mean that you have to lose a mom or something like that, or it could be a pet. Like there, it always eventually finds its way, because I think that's part of humanity, for you to experience the whole spectrum of life.
And then kind of what you were saying about living in dysfunction and being so used to living in dysfunction. What comes up for me now as well is now that I feel like I'm coming out of dysfunction, when someone asks me how I am or how life's going, I almost feel guilty saying like, oh, well, I'm in a great place. Like I'm living in Portugal. I'm not working that much. I'm still, like, and a guilt comes up for that. And so then I put myself back outwardly into a dysfunctional place. And I'm like, oh, yeah, things are okay. Like, as opposed to celebrating, the where I am now versus where I was January 2023, which is like night and day. And I know I have so much more to grow and like so many, like you were saying, layers to still unwind and peel off. But that immediate reaction of like, oh, well, everyone is living in this dysfunction, like, so it's like the world that I
Yeah.
left in New York coming me like, oh, how are you? Like, how are things? And me not wanting to tell them the truth, which is, oh my God, I'm so happy that I left New York and I'm so happy that I'm focusing on myself and I'm so happy that I have time. And, people are like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? And I'm kind of like, well, I don't, I'm like
Whatever my
living.
heart, yeah, whatever my heart says to do.
Right, exactly. And there's like, and it's almost like I kind of want to hide when I get that question because it's like we've been programmed to not be okay being happy or living outside of dysfunction or work or being in the process of like unwinding that dysfunction.
Well, and I think you hit it perfectly because that is the inner child right there. Like, as I hear that, like,
Mm.
the grief that comes up is for one, okay, if I don't know how to relate, because this is how we related all the time, how our lives are miserable and dysfunctional. Do I belong? Like, I don't want to not belong, so I got to fit in with the
Mm.
crowd so I can belong.
That's
That
true.
that
Mm.
layer, and also, I can't speak for you, but I like for me, I learned like if everybody else was okay, then I could be okay.
Hmm.
And if
Yes.
everybody else is okay, like, that's a whole nother concept for my
Mm.
inner child to realize, like, it's not my responsibility
Yes.
to make anybody else happy. Like, my responsibility is to make me happy, and I'm happy, so I'm okay. And it's okay to be okay. And it's okay not to be okay. But whatever I am
Yeah.
right now, that's beautiful and that's perfect and that's exactly where I get to be. And I don't have to have shame for that. And maybe when I do that, it gives them permission to ask questions and maybe they want to implement something. But that's not my intention. That's an option that they have, but it's not my mission to save the world. And that's one thing that I have to remind my little inner girl all the time is like, you don't have to be the superhero. That doesn't mean like that superhero, like Wonder Woman, the S on your chest, whatever, like that isn't always a badge of honor. Like,
Yeah.
you're not here to save the world in sacrifice of yourself. Like, the only person I'm here to save is me. And guess what? I don't need to be saved by anything external either. And like, that's a whole different paradigm. Like I get to show up for me, and me modeling that can give like a role model and an example for somebody else, but that can never be my intention. They have to decide. I can plant seeds, but I can't there's it's not my responsibility. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's a hard like pill to swallow to remember, like, as much as I may have the tools and I love somebody so much and I want to share that, that might not be their path. And it's not that they don't love me that they're pushing away. It's they want to find their own path, their own way of doing it. And yeah, they may stumble, they may fall flat on their face, but who am I to take that opportunity away from them? Too. Like I'm denying them their own experience, and I'm stepping out of my own experience when I'm trying to manipulate and control somebody else's. Because I know those are very like strong words, but that's honestly what it is. And sometimes I have to tell my inner child that because she knows how that feels. She doesn't like to be controlled and manipulated. So when I use that language, she's like, oh yeah, okay, like, yep, I hear you now. Like, I'm not like a teenager with the arms clapped. Yep, okay, mom. And then when you hear that, you're like, ooh, okay, yep. I don't want anyone to feel the way I do, and that's why I do what I do. And then so then it piques her interest, and she's like, okay, maybe you do have something there. Now what do we do? I'm more open to kind of see, how do I do that? How do I stop trying to save the world? And that's a whole nother journey to go on, is in that is just taking responsibility of what's mine and what's not, and let go of the bags that I'm carrying that is not mine to carry.
Yeah. Yes. And the shame, when you like brought up shame as well, I think that's really like I was saying guilt, but it's like shameful to be working on yourself or putting energy into yourself as opposed to just be like self-effacing and torturing yourself for the, 9 to 6 job and just like this is how life's supposed to be. It's shame. So that was a very
Yeah.
good
'Cause
emotion to
that's the core,
yeah.
like the 4 core wounds of the inner child is abandonment, rejection, trust, and shame. And so a lot of the times we have all 4 that we get to nurture in that space. And when we reparent and we love and we show up as the person that inner child needs in that space to kind of soothe some of those wounds. Like for me, like my rejection wound. But if I show
Mhm.
up and I let my inner child know that no matter what, like the world can reject you, but I won't reject you. I accept all of me. Then that wound gets softer and softer and starts healing the different layers. Same thing as like I've abandoned myself so much in my life. We all have.
Yeah.
And when I'm really intentional and go, okay, I see where I could run out on you or throw you under the bus, but I'm choosing not to, and have grace with me as I stumble through this process because it's new for me not to sell out myself and run away too
Yeah.
in that space, and like let's show up together and know that I'm not perfect. Like that's one thing that I tell my kids all the time. Like this is my first time raising you at at 15. This is my first time raising an Xavier at 8. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm navigating this journey just as much as you, and just like this is your first time being this age. So let's work together versus being in resistance of each other, and give each other grace, and have that freedom of expressing how we feel and what we truly desire. I don't want my kids to be afraid to say what they say in a respectful way, just like I want to make sure that I'm saying things in a respectful way and allow us both to have that space, because otherwise you have that resentment. And I don't ever, like, for me, love is a choice. It should never be fear or manipulation or pressured. It's I'm choosing to be with you for your flaws and your gifts. Like, and I have that safety in there even when we disagree and not agree, and we can have those open conversations. Like, because I tell my 15-year all the time, like, I don't mind if you debate me. Like, we set a boundary up, and if you don't agree with it, I don't want you just to blindly agree. I want you to say, hey mom, I know this is your boundary and I don't want to cross your boundary. But your boundary, like, this is my perspective and this is what I'm doing. Like, is there a way we can adjust the boundary? Like, is that possible because of X, Y, and Z? And like, if you come with me like that, then guess we're co-collaborating and co-creating this space together. We are a family. This is not a dictatorship. This is not the mom show. Like, I
Yeah.
have boundaries, and that's what I always say is like we all have our boundaries, and if we don't express them, I don't know that I'm crossing yours, and you don't know that I'm crossing mine, and then we're really, really frustrated. But it's not that we are mad at each other, it's we're hurt. So the anger isn't because I'm mad at you, you're a bad kid, or I'm a horrible mother. It's I laid a line and I didn't really feel confident to share it, or maybe I didn't express it and you didn't realize it. And once again, it comes back to that conversation of like, was I intentionally crossing the line, or did I not know about it and what it was in that
Yeah.
space?
No, I just love listening to you because I feel like I learned so much, just all things that I need to learn as well, because we are reflections of each other. So everything you're saying, I'm like, I resonate with so much.
Well, and then like some people, I know some people don't have kids, and like when they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Jackie, you share about your kids," but they don't realize when I share about my kids, that's exactly what you can do with yourself, because we all have a
Yeah.
child inside. So the way I interact, they're like, "Oh, it's beautiful. I wish my parents did that with me." I said, "But guess what? Then the reason that you say that is because that's what your inner child wants, and you get to be your own inner parent gets to be that for your inner child." And so you can still take those same things. It's still relatable. It's not that it's like completely in a different realm
Yeah.
of that space.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think like in conversations with people when they bring up like, oh, my son or my daughter just did this, and it immediately now like brings up, and maybe this is another representation of me starting to be more connected with my inner child. I immediately like relate it back to my childhood and I'm like, oh my goodness, I that's what I did. And I automatically start kind of taking that in. And I'm like, that was me as a kid. I was like, that's completely what I did. So I have been more recently like relating everything back to myself that and it's true too in a way that like it doesn't matter how old we get, we still also have all of these emotions and behaviors that, well, we learned them when we were kids, and so they are still there and they are a part of us.
Absolutely.
So I always laugh when whether it's something that's fun and playful, and then I'm reminded of like, oh, I want to play more and I want to have more fun and I want to go back to that, or it's a trait that is something like, oh, like I used to annoy my brother so much to the point where like he would hit me because it was just at least attention. And then I would cry and go scream and complain to my parents that like my brother hit me and he would get in trouble. But it was like the attention that I wanted.
Yeah.
And so whether it's something like that or just something so funny and playful that is reminiscent of like, you know, playing freeze tag outside or just like on the jungle gym and on the play set and in the treehouse and how much fun I used to have just like imagination, literally just the game of imagination. And I was always the leader of that. And I feel like over time, I've allowed that to be kind of sucked out of me. And I want to bring that back in.
Bring that play back. I always say like people say like, "Oh, you outgrow those childhood patterns." It's not the truth in my mind. Like we're just adults throwing adults version of tantrums. Like that's literally what it
Absolutely.
is. Like the
Absolutely.
same things that we did as a child that got our way, we learn that that's like the way we respond, and we do now. It may be a little more sophisticated package that you put it in, but at the same point, it's the exact same thing. The same
Yeah.
little quirks in that space, and when you're sharing that, like that's what I like. She feels safe enough for you to say, hey, look at this. Like, remember when we did this? It's like now she's instead of hiding in the corner, she's like
Mm.
at the like once again going into the inside out mode. Like she's at the dashboard going, oh, look at that.
Right.
Pull this memory up so she can hear this. Like in that, like she
Yeah.
feels like she's welcome and it's okay. It's okay to be in there. It's safe again in that space. And so I love that.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh, I could go on and on and on, but
I
I
know.
we've been talking for a while. Is there anything
Yeah.
like you'd want to share with somebody of where to start out or anything like that? Like last, whatever comes to your mind, like kind of a closing message that wants to come through.
The first thing that kind of comes to my mind is like, don't be so self-judgmental and hard on yourself. And I'm still working through that and telling myself that, but I think that's the kind of the biggest thing that also stops us from moving forward. Just our self-judgment, our self-belief, and just like the trust in ourself. Just we are on the right path, and wherever we are right now doesn't mean that that is where we're going to end. And it's a journey, and to try to find the play in it and get curious again.
Yes, I love that. I want to always drill in for people like the healing journey doesn't have to be so heavy and so serious. You get to play. You get to have fun with it too. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have some deep emotions in those points, but it doesn't always have to be like that. You get to also remember how to celebrate. You get to have that play in the playground and that innocence back.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love these conversations. I'm
Me
gonna put it in
too.
the show notes, but is there any place like if people are like, I love Laura, I want to come into her world, how do they reach out in and connect with you?
So you can reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at consciously underscore Laura underscore. No, sorry. at consciously underscore healing underscore Laura. And that's definitely the best way to reach out to me.
Yes. And I'll drop that in the link so you can just click on it in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being with this podcast, Laura. I absolutely love our conversations.
Me too. I love you so much, Jackie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Soul Revolution Tribe and being part of our soul family. If anything in this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share your takeaways. You can find me on IG at Grow with Jackie B or on YouTube at Soul Revolution Tribe. I will see you next week for more soul conversations and medicine. Bye for now, and see you back soon.